Welcome to episode 11. As you would expect, I have another collection of fine pianists that we have in the Australian Jazz Museum archive. It's a variety of music as well. I'll tell you about it a song at a time. I try and find at least one track per episode that's just piano, because that's, after all, what we're celebrating. But the piano is, of course, part of a band as well. So quite a lot of it is piano playing in the band, and you hear it to varying degrees. The first one I'm starting with comes from a CD I know I've already used before. It was recorded in Tasmania in 1998 and it's titled 9 Piano Men and a Lady. The piano man choice for today is Victor Zappner, OAM. Victor arrived in Tasmania in 1979, having left what was then Czechoslovakia, and had a celebrated career of 15 years as the musical director of Devonport's Jazz Festival, only recently stepping down in 2016. The track that Victor plays on here has come to my attention because it's one that I love by another of my overseas favourites, Bill Evans. So we're going to hear Victor play Someday My Prince Will Come. When I'm looking at music that's in a museum, I expect that not all the performers are still with us. I'm bothered when I find one who's young, and we've got one here. Jamie Fielding appears to have only made it to 33, born about the same time that I was, so that sort of strikes a chord. We've got an album called Notes from the Underground, and the description reads, an imposing 3 CD compilation of the unique musical sojourn of legendary late underground keyboard player and composer Jamie Fielding in live and studio settings from 1981 to 1992. With some of Australia's finest musicians, Jamie Fielding and friends appear as Odwalla. So the track here was recorded in 1983 and it's called One-Upmanship. The band Odwalla is made up of Jamie on piano, Keith Hounslow on flugelhorn, Martin Jackson on sax, Keith Buckley on string bass, and Ted Vining on drums. I think it took me quite some time to select which one because I've got a number of criteria. I don't want a track to be too long, so some of the more lengthy ones just don't fit a 5-song, 30-minute podcast. But I'm happy with the one I've picked, so I hope you are too. The next pianist is Mark Fitzgibbon. Now, I should start by saying the Australian Jazz Museum recently received a visit from Mark with some wonderful instruments which have added to the memorabilia received last year from his sister Nisha. And we're, as I speak, working on a display that'll focus the wonderful collection we've got from that family. Mark is performing at the Wangaratta Jazz Festival in 1991 with Craig Scott on string bass and Alan Turnbull on drums. And he's playing a Thelonious Monk tune called Rhythm a Ning. Now here's another CD I've used before because the tracks on it are pretty good, and again it represents the cool school. So this is from Bodgy Dada and the Cult of the Cool. Our cool pianist for this episode is Roger Frampton, Dr. Roger Frampton. Now, like many of the people that we've adopted, Roger was born in England and his family migrated to Australia in 1968. The following year he attended a series of free jazz classes in experimental music, and in 1999 he was awarded a Doctorate of Creative Arts from the Wollongong University for his thesis exploring correlations between his composition and improvisation. The piece you're going to hear today has actually been covered by another band, which I think is a great honour. It's an original by Roger. So in 2000, Graham Jesse, who's the sax player in his band, which includes keyboards, did a cover of this track on his album called The Flow, which you can find on Spotify to hear how they treated it. But we've got an enigmatically titled song, RF021273, which I'm decoding as Roger Frampton, probably written on the 1st of December 1973. Roger's band is Howie Smith on tenor sax, Jack Thorncroft on string bass, and Phil Treloar on drums. To finish off the episode, we've got Bob Franklin. Now, Bob has played with a number of bands. The one that I've picked is the Golden City Jazz Band from an album they've called We're Unplugged 2. Came out in 1994. You can see the Eric Clapton influence on people being unplugged. It was recorded at Ross Creek, which is near Ballarat, and it's called Crown and Anchor Stomp. And one of the things I've mentioned is we don't always get just piano, but if you have a listen to this one, you'll find that once the solos come in, the piano comes through quite nicely. And playing with Bob are Herb Jennings on trombone and some vocals, but I don't think they appear on this track. Bob Patty on cornet, Gary Richardson on reeds, Peter Ratnick on string bass, and Ron Rosser on drums. Hope you enjoy it. Well, that's it for episode 11. If you've made it through to episode 11, I'm going to assume that you're enjoying it. I've kept the style fairly similar, although I can sense I've changed a little bit. I'm providing a little bit more information as I've got a feel for what the project's about. But I'm certainly enjoying it, and it's a wonderful way for me to research the collection and share it with others with this podcast. Thank you. See you on the next one.